Good morning everyone, welcome to Our Small Footprint. My name is Nyssa, and if you're new here, we are a family of 8 who live off-grid in Australia. Each month I try and bring you daily videos of what we do with our 6 weekly grocery haul to show you how we use it, and this is part of October's series for you. So today's video we got some tomatoes, mangoes and mince processed. I kind of feel like when I film these sorts of ones that I'm repeating myself, because things like mince we buy every 6 weeks, we buy every month, and we use for very similar things each time. So let me know in the comments if you feel like this is a little bit repetitive, and I might try and condense that sort of stuff in each month rather than saying the whole process of what I do, but I know that I get new viewers each month as well, so I don't know how it works, but let me know anyway. So yes, we got through one of the 4 kilos of mince. I actually just froze the other 4 kilo because I want to make mince beef pies later on in the month, and I just am not going to get to making the filling and freezing it as filling, so I froze the whole 4 kilos in 1 kilo batches. But I got one 4 kilo batch done, I got half the tomatoes done, and I got most of the mangoes done. So come along and see what I got done today and how I used it, and I will see you again tomorrow with more. Thanks guys. So one of the first tasks that I have to do when I do the groceries is the fresh produce and the mince. So today we worked on that. I started with some of the tomatoes. So I got these big boxes of Roma tomatoes that were $10 a box, really good price, really nice looking tomatoes. And I'm just going to roast them and puree them to use to make pasta sauce. So all I do is I take the main little core out of them, I slice them in half and take the main little core out of them, and then I put them in the trays. If you put them face down, then if you want to peel them later, it makes it easier to peel them. So I just load up the trays face down and I put them in the put the trays in the barbecue for us, because that's what we're using as an oven, and I cook them until there's colour on the tops of them. So I leave the skins on, mind you, I don't bother peeling them, because we don't mind the skins on, and there's lots of nutrients in those skins, so we leave the skins on and we just puree it at the end. I don't bother taking seeds out or anything else, but if you were that way inclined, you could roast them like this and then you could put them through a food mill and it would remove all the seeds and the skins and things like that. I don't currently have a food mill. I need to get the attachment for my KitchenAid so that if I want to do that I can, but I don't currently have one, so at the moment it would be too much work anyway, even if I wanted to do it. So we just leave the skins on, we take the little knob of core out just so that we don't have that chunk in there, and otherwise we just roast them whole just like that. I did put a little drizzle of olive oil and a bit of salt over them, and I find that that helps the top skins colour up a little bit better, and then put them in the barbecue. We got 2 big boxes of mangoes. These boxes were only $12 each, and there's a lot that have a few bruising or some rot and that sort of thing in them, but most of them are usable. So what I did was I just peeled them all and got all the flesh off. So I use a cup to remove the cheeks from the mangoes. I showed this on Facebook the other day. So if you slice the cheeks off and then you use a cup and you get the edge in underneath the rim of the cheek, you can take the whole cheek out in one go. So I do that, and then I trim all the pips, and the kids eat the pips. Now I didn't end up doing anything with the skins. I would have liked to, but most of the stuff that I looked at was all pickling and things like that, and I just wasn't particularly interested. I would have gone to all that work and no one would have eaten it. So I ended up feeding them all to the pigs and the chickens, but someone on Facebook did mention that I could dehydrate the skins and use them in teas, and that would have been awesome. I really wish I had have seen that before I did all this, because dehydrating those, I can't think of anything better than like a mango iced tea in summer. So I'm going to make sure that I keep some skins and dehydrate them in the next batch that I get, because I'm sure I'll get mangoes again. They're normally not even actually in season cheap at this time of the year. It's normally closer to Christmas, so I'm not sure where these ones came from, but they're very undersized and there's a lot of greening on them, so maybe it was to do with the flooding or something, and so the trees dropped their fruit early or whatever. But super sweet, good flesh, not particularly stringy. There is some bruising on them and some of the black lines, which is purely just overripe, rotting going through the veins of the mangoes, it doesn't actually affect them at all. And my kids really aren't fussy about it. So once I peeled them all, I just diced them all up and spread them on a silicone mat on a baking tray for the freezer. It would be better if there was more space between the pieces, but we have very limited freezer space. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flash freeze it like this and then break it up to put into a freezer bag for storing. And we use this in making ice cream or nice cream, you know, the frozen banana and fruit ice cream, Fruity Dream from the Thermomix recipe book, or just in smoothies and the smoothie pops that I make. I also put some, pureed some up with my hands, mushed it all up and froze it in ice cube trays. Again, it was sort of about having the space to put it. We didn't have much freezer space. I didn't really have anywhere flat to put another tray, so putting in these ice cube trays will work. And it doesn't freeze solid because it's fruit, so it'll only take a couple of minutes for these ice cubes to melt enough for the Thermomix to be able to blend them, so that will work well. The other thing that we need to get used is the mince. So mince is one of the things that has the shortest best before date when you buy it because of the large amount of surface area. So I try and get to the mince within the first sort of 48 hours. I think the use by dates on them are like 24 hours, but we find 48, 72 hours is fine. So what I did was I did a big batch of bolognese. So these roasted tomatoes I'm going to use to can pasta sauce, because when we make our bolognese we add pasta sauce to it. So first thing I did was I minced up all the vegetables. So I do carrots, onions, celery, mushrooms if I have them, zucchini if I have it, garlic if I have it, anything like that. And I do it in batches in the Thermomix because we like it into like that minced texture, because we want it to blend into the bolognese, not have chunks of vegetable through the bolognese. I prefer it to be the flavour of the vegetables, because the carrot adds that sweetness and the mushrooms add that umami, but I want that flavour without the texture of them. So I just do it in batches in the Thermomix until they're nice and minced up, and then throw it all in a pot with some oil and cook it off. I added minced garlic here because I didn't have any garlic cloves to mince up, but if I had garlic cloves I would have minced them up with the onions and that. And then I sweat it all off in the pan until it's released some water, and then cooked some water off as well. If I wanted to be, you know, actually thought with it, I would probably cook off my onions first till they were sort of caramelized and then add the other veggies, but I couldn't be bothered, and it doesn't really matter. It's bolognese, it's the flavor of them is there anyway. I then added the mince. So I used a whole tray of mince, which is about 4 kilos of the Costco mince, and I broke it up and put it into the pot. And then I used the tool, I can't remember what they called it now, Hackett or something, that Tracy sent me. So thank you very much, Tracy. This has come in super handy. It definitely helps break up that mince and not leave as many big chunks in there that I got with the wooden spoon. It's a much more even sort of a breakup of the mince in there, so that's great. So I used that tool and just broke up all the mince as it was cooking. We just want it to not be pink, basically, so I just used the swap between a wooden spoon and the Hackett tool and get it all broken up and browned off. After that I add tomato products. So I used jarred passata. I know I've just roasted all those tomatoes, but that's going to be making pasta sauce that's canned, that will be added to this bolognese when it's defrosted to be eaten, because we make our bolognese thick. Might not make much sense to you, but as we go along I'll have to show you when I make a bolognese and heat one up what it looks like. So I add jarred passata to it, and I add tomato paste as well, and then I use the fresh stock as well. I made stock this morning. I didn't record it. I didn't have the camera out quick enough. So I made chicken stock this morning, carrots, celery, garlic, onion, and some bones from the thighs that I buy with the bones in. So a bag of frozen ones of those, and made the chicken stock this morning. Pressure cooked it for 90 minutes and then left it on the stove here. So the passata jars always have passata left in them, like there's no way to get it all out. So what I do is I use a couple of ladlefuls of the stock. This stock isn't particularly hot anymore, it's warm but not hot, to put into the jar, and then shake the jars and pour that into the bolognese pot. So that way I'm getting as much of the passata out as possible, and I'm adding stock to the bolognese at the same time, which is what I'm going to do anyway. So I get all that into the pot, the passata. I do add some Worcestershire sauce, a bit of brown sugar, some smoked paprika, the chicken stock paste or a beef stock paste, just to add a bit more depth of flavour. Sometimes I add some rosemary or Italian herbs. I tend to taste it as I go and just get it to where I want it to be. And then I cook it down until it's quite thick. Once it's cooked down and quite thick with just that tomato product in there, then I add stock. So I'm just straining it straight over the pot here, just to make sure I don't get any bones. If there's bits of vegetable matter and stuff that go in there, I don't care, but I don't want any bones in there. And I add stock to the pot until it's about 1.5 to 2 times the volume, because I want it really runny to start with. The leftover bones and vegetables from this stock will be pureed up for dog food. So it's been pressure cooked to the point where you can crush the bones between your fingers, so it will all be pureed up into dog food for the dogs. So I just drain off all the liquid to save, can use for whatever needs. Once it's all really wet like that, like once it's really liquidy, then I add pearl barley. So I use pearl barley because I prefer the texture of the pearl barley in the bolognese. It's a little bit like having more meat in there, but you can use anything you want here. You could use lentils, you could use split peas, anything like that. We personally prefer the pearl barley, so that's what I use, and I use about half my jar full. These are 1.8 litre jars, I think, so say 800 grams, 750 grams maybe of pearl barley to this 4 kilo batch of mince. And the reason you want all that stock in there is because it's going to swell. So once the once the pearl barley is added, I just cook it until the pearl barley is soft to the mouth. Like, you want to make sure that it doesn't have a hard bite to it. And then this particular day, I actually put it all into containers in the fridge, and I will freeze it from cold, because it's a lot easier to pour into the bags to be frozen when it's cold. So we cooked it until it needed to be, let it cool, and then put it in the fridge. Once the tomatoes were roasted, I wanted to show you how easy they are to peel once they're roasted. So you can see that you can just slip the skin straight off them. So if you wanted to not have the skins on them, then you could just slip them straight off and use it without. I threw it all into my Thermomix jug as is, so I just fill the Thermomix jug with a whole tray of tomatoes, and then I puree it until it's smooth. So I have to do it in batches. It's about 1 tray can fit in the Thermomix jug at a time. So I just pour it all in and then puree it until it's smooth, and then I have this pure roasted tomato liquid, which is just delicious. I actually stuck this in the fridge as well because I have more tomatoes to do tomorrow, and it's not worth making up the sauce before I've got all the tomatoes done. So I will put this in the fridge, and then I will do the next lot tomorrow, and then when I'm ready to can it within the next day or so, I will put it all in the pot and heat it back up with the other flavors that I use to make my pasta sauce, and then I'll can it from there. So that was most of what happened today, and I hope you enjoyed watching, and I will be back tomorrow with the next batch of cooking that uses up all my monthly grocery haul. Bye guys.